Yes, welcome everyone to the 2020 APEC Groundbreakers virtual tour by APEC OUC. And this year, our event would be the biggest one ever done, with 174 sessions that would be including normal sessions, workshops, and hands-on labs. That's from 123 different speakers over 11 days. Also, it would cover sessions on 4 different languages. So please remember to register to as many sessions as you can, and all sessions would be available to replay as many times as you want for 2 weeks after the initial session date and time. You can also interact with the speaker at any time during that 2 weeks by posting questions or comments directly in the playback session page. But first things first, I would like to say thanks to all Oracle user groups and Java user groups that made this event possible, and also to our sponsors, Oracle Groundbreakers and CloudDB. Now for today's session, Oracle Apex Slow Code for Data Driving by Franco Ucci. Please feel free to write questions at any time during the session at the Q&A tab of the Zoom webinar, and the speaker will be answering them at the end of the session, or it could be in the middle of the session. If any issues during the presentation, please feel free to contact me at any time on the chat tab of the Zoom webinar. Now, without any more delays, I would like to leave you with this amazing session by Franco. Take it away, Franco.
Thank you, Nelsie. Appreciate being introduced. I'll just share my screen and we're ready to go. So as we said, the next 40 odd minutes, we're going to be talking about how you can use Oracle Application Express low code for data driving apps. So let's just get through Safe Harbor, and just to highlight that the low code development framework is now starting to be recognized by industry analysts, recognizing that if you've got a capability with speed to get an outcome, it means you can understand if you're going in the right direction. And the sorts of things you're looking for, obviously, is minimal coding, very affordable, fast delivery, and the ability to share what you're doing and actually be able to do it in a highly productive, collaborative manner. The answer to that from Oracle, we've got a couple of capabilities, one of which is the Oracle Application Express, which actually comes free with every Oracle database, and you can experience all part of the always Oracle free cloud. It's been out there for many, many years. It's got a very strong developer community. And another way to test how popular this is just to Google Apex with some sort of issue or problem or code snippet that you're looking for. Probably the key thing that is really positive about it, there's a couple of key things. It's obvious because of the point and click browser-based approach, it gives you that low code app development platform. It's very easy to understand and get started. There's a range of tutorials that help you with that, both SQL and REST API. And whatever you do, it's actually got a responsive framework. So whether you use it from a browser on your laptop or computer or on some sort of tablet or mobile app. So let's get into it and talk about the idea of this low code approach. And as we know, these sorts of things don't come in a vacuum. Usually there's somebody who's got some sort of idea that they're trying to validate. And that idea relates to some sort of business outcome. And we've got that here on the left. And then on the right, there's usually some sort of technology champion who's got a relationship with the business or organization champion that understands what's possible with a capability like Apex, aware that there's some sort of user experience, there's some sort of access and execution, and some sort of data and services approach. So how do you bring those two elements together? And it's what I call the ABCD. So how do you activate what you've got? And then how do you actually go through an iterative process to build and collaborate and then take it through to some sort of deployment? So let's talk about how we do that. And so what you see here is I'll have 4 examples that I'm going to demonstrate today. The first one is some sort of spreadsheet turning into a data app or API, and we've got trying to find the right wine for dinner. The second one is where someone's got an idea and they're taking it from an idea to a model to some sort of data and application, and it's orientated around small project management. The third one is around someone's got an idea and they're wondering, does an app already exist? Is it ready made? Is there something I can start to interact with and then get some intelligence out of? And that's around an application for incident tracking. And then the other one is similar to the first, but it's trying to find the right beer for my barbecue that I'm going with. But instead of getting the data from a spreadsheet, we'll be getting it from a JSON file that actually exists. So while I've spoken about those things and talked about the 4 different approaches we could take, the first thing is actually to talk about the overall approach. And the first thing is, how do you get started? How do you move from someone talking about something to then getting it happening? And then how do you make sure that right through this process, you're planning for a positive experience with people becoming skilled and seeing what sort of outcome? So let's talk about that activate, build, collaborate, and deploy before we get into our demos. So the first thing is get people to talk about their projects, get people to talk about what matters to them, whether it's around the user experience, whether it's around an app, or whether it's around the data. And it's a little bit like being a detective, creating some sort of mind map. But instead of a mind map here, we're actually creating a storyboard and effectively trying to share how do I see what you're describing here. And once you've got enough of what somebody is describing, because it will never be totally complete, it's actually quicker to get this thing up and going and showing it back to them. And that's the whole idea of this low-code approach. We then start to go through the build and collaborate. So then obviously we need to provision, we need to work out how we get some sort of data modeled, how do we test that, how do we load that? And then let's look at how we build a UI with some APIs as well. And can we consider an existing application that's already been built in the past? And then obviously we go through an iterative stage to test and refine what's going on, moving from the build to the collaborate. And then finally, once we've got something, how do we showcase what we've learned and take it to the next steps with what we have here? So let's get into what we would do for each one of these scenarios. So the first one is where I've got the spreadsheet and I'm turning it into an application. Today, I'm going to show you, I'm going to take each one of these 4 and actually show you how we can manifest these into 4 running demos in less than 25 minutes. So the first one is the wine selection for dinner. And so we'll have a spreadsheet of 25,000 odd wines. We're going to load that into our Apex environment, get a data set ready to go, then create a default app on that, show the app. Then what we'll also do, because we actually value APIs, we'll enable a REST API, and then we'll show you how we can also put some query qualifiers on that as well. The second project will be around someone's got an idea around some sort of project management app, and we'll start off using this new capability called QuickSQL that will help generate a project team data set. It will enable you to create a quick app, and then you'll actually be able to interact and test what that app is. The third one is around incident tracking, where I'm going to go to the App Store and actually see, does a ready-made app already exist? And we'll go to the app gallery and we'll see there is an incident app there. And from there, we'll be able to manifest an incident data set, an incident app, and then be able to play with the app and see how it's going. And finally, we'll actually go to the beer selection for barbecue, where we'll actually show you how we can load this JSON file using the the new capability within the Oracle database and Apex, where we're actually loading the actual document as a JSON file, and then we'll see it manifested in the database in a natural JSON format. We'll be able to show a query on that. We'll also show that even though it's being held as a JSON file, we'll be able to look at it from a relational aspect and then create an app from it and show you that app running. So that's what we're going to do in the next 25 minutes. And that actually starts right now. So I'm now going to move into demonstration mode. So now I'm sitting here in Apex and I've got nothing in my environment. If I go here, I can see I've got no tables, I've got no views, I've got none of the simple documents there. So there's nothing there at all. I click on the app builder and there's nothing there either as well. So I'm just going to put this back to the object browser. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start my first demo, which is around the wine selection for barbecue. So I'm now going to go from SQL Workshop and go to Data Workshop. And you'll notice here that you can actually load data from Cloud Object Storage. We're actually just going to load it from my laptop. And I've got my wine spreadsheet over here. So it's going to introspect that wine spreadsheet. And I'm just going to create a table called wine. I can actually look at the data that it's found. And you can see it's picked up vintage, country, county, designation, the number of points, that is how good that wine is, what the price is, the province, the title of the wine, the variety, and which winery it came from. And it's been able to generate that because it's sampling 200 rows. You can see you can alter that and do it right through to all of the rows. I've got 25,000 here, so that will take a little bit of time, but we won't be doing that. We'll just go with the first 200. Now I'm going to load the data. So this is now starting to pick up the spreadsheet and we'll start to load this. And as I said, this has got around about 24 to 25,000 rows. And we'll see this get loaded here. And I can look at the table, but because we're short of time, I'm going to create application. And it's actually worked out. It's going to give me a dashboard, a wine search, a wine report, a calendar, and I'm going to go off and create the application. So it's actually created those artifacts. I'm now going to go run application. I'm going to log in to my application. You can see we've got a dashboard, a wine search, wine report, and this is responsive. So I can, if I make it smaller, you can see it'll actually change. I'm going to click on the dashboard and it's automatically picked up from that data how many wines are in the US, France, Italy, right through to places like Australia, which is where I am. And you can see the number, how many wines are at the different points and also the different varieties of wine. So because I live in South Australia, I'm actually going to go to the wine search, and it's created what we've called a faceted search. And I live in South Australia, but first off, I'm going to pick Australia. I go show less. I'm wanting to get a wine that's greater than 90 points. I want to pick my home state of South Australia, and I'm going to pick a Shiraz. And now I can actually see wines, and I'll just hit the search. And now I can see wines that are greater than 90 points. and I can pick, say, a nice $20 bottle of wine that I can go off and take to a barbecue there. So I could take one of these Wira Wiras or the Penfolds Bin Shiraz for $22 there. Another way to actually get that same quick intelligence is just to click on Wine Report. And because I saw some of the wines were from the Barossa district, I can just click Barossa. I can click Shiraz. And the other thing I can also do is use a filter and say, I want a price of the wine less than or equal to $20. And you can start to see I've got a number of wines there that I can also pick as well. I'm just going to sort that. And so we can see the let's call it the pure Shirazes versus the blends there. And I can look at picking something like a Grant Burge or a Shield Estate or something like a Chocolate Box. I'm going to go back to the object browser, just hit refresh. And you can see I've now got my wine table, recognize that it's sitting in the database. I'm now going to click on REST API. And just because I've got the table here in the database, I can actually turn REST enable the object, yes. Authorization required, I'll say no, and I'll hit apply. I'm now going to grab that URL, go over here, and I should be able to use this as a REST API. And now I can actually browse my data. I can actually also click on one of these and this is now just looking at one of the columns there. You can see it's just got wine with the one, and it's also giving me enough information there that if I was doing an update or a delete, I can also use the REST API in that format. The other benefit that we get with the REST API capability within Oracle Apex is we can actually apply query filters on top of that. And I'll show an example of that here. So here you can see county equals Barossa, the variety equals Shiraz, price is LT less than $20, and I wanted to do the price descending. And so let's just see this query filter applied to that. So now I've got that Grant Burge winery, the Maverick from Breachins, Yalumba Patchwork Shiraz, and that Jacobs Creek one, which we highlighted before. So there they are, Yalumba, Grant Burge, Jacobs Creek. So what we've just done there is we've actually been able to create a REST API and start to apply that relatively quickly. So let's go back to our demo. I kicked it off. That took me 6 minutes to actually get that capability where I'm loading the data. I've created the app. We played around with the app a little bit. We enabled the REST API and we actually created a query filter actually doing that. We're now going to kick off our next demo, which is the app for small projects, where I've got a team project idea. I'm going to use QuickSQL. That will help me generate a data set and then create an app and go with that. So let's go to that demo now. I'll just close that, close that. I'll go back to the app builder. And what I'll do now is I'll go to this capability called QuickSQL. So under SQL Workshop, you'll see utilities, and you've already seen me play with Data Workshop where I could load different types of data that will create a relational table there. You'll notice something called Query Builder that enables you to obviously build a query and have a bit of analytics on that, we're going to go off and look at QuickSQL right now. So in QuickSQL, there's the ability for me to start, and remember, I'm trying to create a little project app. So I've got team members. I've got something like a username. I've got someone's full name. I've got someone's email. Now, as you can see, as I'm typing here in the left window, in the right window, it's actually starting to generate the actual DDL, the data definition to actually create this. I can also start to talk about projects. Let me get that back. Give the project a name. I can actually say it's not null. I can also say project lead, which references the actual team members. And it will start to generate this for me. Now, instead of me typing this out, I've actually got one which has I've already drafted, which is a bit more complete than you watching me type. And the thing which is nice about this is that I'm using a lot of the actual descriptions that are in the help here. So there's table directives, things like /history, /insert. So /insert lets you generate some sample data. /history will create additional columns, create an additional table for that. /audit will create an updated by, created by, etc. in there. The other thing that's really attractive is if you click on samples, you can actually load up some models here of what are some examples. So I've already got my little one here. I can click on settings and I'm going to call this PM. I'll give it an object prefix. You can see I can generate inserts. I can have the audit columns that we've already got turned on. You can include drops in here. You can history tables. You could have a tags framework, give it 18C, and there they are. So we'll save those changes. And you can see all of this SQL has been generated for us, including the actual sample data. And there you go. We've got 4,000 plus lines of code that have been generated from that. I'm just going to save this. Call it PM100. And now I'm going to go off and run this. Click run. Run it now. I'll get a few errors because of the drop statements. And now I'm going to go off and create the application. Call it PM. And it's created all these artifacts, team members, projects, milestones, tasks, to-dos, the links. I'm just going to go off and run it. And once again, data 6. And I've now got these artifacts ready to go. Team members here. You can see it's given me some nice sample data that I can start to use. I've got the projects, or actually I haven't got the projects because I probably didn't have the inserts there with that. So I need to look at that. So, but what you've seen me do very quickly is being able to generate something that I can start to use. I can go off now and let's go off and create, let's say a upgrade project. I can allocate a project lead, new graduate training. give it a status of assigned, give it a completion date, actually completion date in the future, and description. And let's see if this goes create. And there I've got something there. And I could start to go through that. So that was a very quick little capability where I've just gone off and I've just created an app very quickly. What I'm going to do now is actually kick off the next project where I'm now going to look at how can I take advantage of what's in the app gallery. I'm looking to do something around incident tracking. How can I get something up and going in that space? So let's go do that now. Let's close that one down. And I'll click on the application gallery here. And in the application gallery, you see two different things. First off, you see sample code snippets that are here that show you what's possible. If you were looking for a master detail or a sample application or something that was a dynamic action or around REST APIs, around look and feel, or you could actually look at applications that are like part of an app store. So we've got something around opportunity tracking, around building surveys, around doing polling, customer tracking, even project management and standards. The one we're looking for is around incident tracking. So let's click on that. And this explains to the incident tracking app, gives you a complete system for entering and tracking support incidents. The app allows you to enter companies and multiple contacts. So very good for us to use if we're looking at doing some sort of tracking around incidents. So let's go off and click install this. And what this is, it's a really good example of an existing Apex application. So whether you're going to use it or not, it's worth installing to have a look at a model and some practices around that. So this application is now installed. I'm going to go and have a look at that. I'm going to once again log in. And once again, it's actually got a configuration screen. So you can work out how you want to organize who gets access control. If you want to add a user, if you want to use the sample data, or if you're comfortable, you want to load in your own data straight away, and then some configuration around application objects. We're going in the scenario here where we're actually going to show this. And so we've now got the application up and running. And the thing that's positive about this is you can see it running with some sample data. So we can see the recent tickets that have been generated here. We've got 16 open tickets, 16 unassigned tickets, 3 closed, 4 custom with open tickets. You can see it by the different project or product areas. You can actually see which customers it's with, and you can actually see how it's using it with the tag system. So let's go here and once again, let's go and have a look at the open tickets. I can actually see them. We've got the little faceted build capability. We've got different ways in which we can filter that. I'm actually going to go off and enter a ticket. So I can see we're using the standard interactive grid and reporting capability that helps us with that. I'm going to pick the customer, Acme here. I'm going to pick Bill Benson. Just pick the Butler Business Barcodes Project version 1. I'm just going to hit next. And now I'm just going to say the system is down. There was an upgrade issue. Test data and test description. And I can actually use these tags here as well. So I'll say it was a Docker issue, a Firefox, and I can also say it was a security issue as well. I can just put that in as well. And I'll go create ticket. So that gives you an example of what's possible there. And there's a heap of reports here as well. Distribution of tickets by status codes, by product, by customer. Let's click on that. And we can see what those tickets are. I can click on the Acme one and it brings it up. So once again, that was a really quick little demonstration of taking what we were trying to do. We're on to our third app idea, where we've got a scenario where someone goes, hey, is there an incident tracking app out there? We were able to find something in the app gallery, and that brought us the ability to get the app up and going. It also comes with its own little data set. Let's go back there and have a look at that. I'll go to the object browser. I'll just hit refresh. And you can see here's quite a significant data model that brings in all of those tables that were created specifically for there. And there are those project management ones that we created earlier as well. And there's our wine data set. Okay, let's get back to our last scenario. So our last scenario is where we're now going to be doing something very similar to how we started, where I've got some existing data, but instead of it being in a spreadsheet or a CSV format, it's actually in a different format. It's in a JSON format. And while I could load that as a relational table in the Apex environment, I actually want to preserve the JSON format as well as see what I can do relationally. So we're going to load this in as a simple document and be able to interact with it via JSON, and then be able to show a query. And then we'll show how we can actually work with it relationally as well. So enough talking, let's go ahead and do that. So I go over to here and go soda collection. And so it actually shows I haven't got anything loaded there. I could actually go over here and load it via the data workshop. But if I do it via that method, it will actually create those tables for me straight away. I don't want that. I want to preserve the JSON format. So what I'm going to do here is I go add. So that's a little plus sign. I'm going to go add. And now I'm going to go look for my beer file, which is just over here. And it's the first one. And I'm going to call this beer 2020. And you can see it's giving me the option to create a relational view as well as that a simple Oracle document view where I'm preserving the JSON. So I go load the data. And there's a fair few beer samples here. 5973. And I'm going to go and view that collection. And you can see there's my data set there. And it's actually got the JSON of the data. It's actually got details about the beer, etc. The other thing it's also got is it's created that beer view as well. So we've actually got it in a relational format. What I'm going to do now is actually go into a SQL command and show you how I can actually inquire on that. And I've got one of these already built to save the time. And hit run. And I've got I'm actually interacting with that beer view, and I'm bringing back, I've decided not to look at American or porters and work out what other styles of beer are there in the rest of the world. And you can see how many of the different styles. And what I'm going to do now is go off and create a very quick little app with that. So I'm just going to go off and create a new application. And I'm just going to call it beer. I'm going to add a page. I'm going to add a chart. In fact, I might just go create it as an empty application first, and then show you creating it from here. I'm going to create a page from here and create a chart using the bar chart there. And I'll call it by style and go next. Create a new navigation entry. And I could pick the table, but I'm going to use that SQL statement that I had before. Hit next. Pick the style name and the value. Hit create. And I've actually done enough work to actually show you that little app interacting with that JSON data. And there you can see the little beer that's actually come up with the amount of columns. So there we actually have the 4 apps in 25, I think it's around about 25 minutes or maybe a little over. And we've actually just shown you what's possible with Apex, whether I'm using a spreadsheet, whether to create an app with a REST API and being able to have a query filter, whether I'm starting from just an idea and I'm creating my data elements to then generating a default data set, creating an app, through to using something out of the app gallery, through to actually keeping your JSON data in that standard format. So getting started with Apex is actually very easy. If you've got existing universal credits running on our cloud account, that's probably it's there. You just get, whether it's an autonomous database or a database cloud service, that's the way to go. If you haven't got that, you can actually use our always free capability to experience it. There's also a capability known as Live Labs. Just Google Oracle Live Labs. That will actually get you up and going through to apex.oracle.com. And also, if you've got an existing Oracle database or the free version of Database Express Edition. The other thing I want to mention as well is that if you go to apex.oracle.com/charts, you will see all the different ways in which data can be reflected in Apex. So apex.oracle.com/charts. There are a couple other URLs in the top right-hand corner I also recommend. You did hear me talk about Oracle Live Labs. That's also probably the fastest and easiest way to actually experience Oracle Apex. Just go to that URL down the bottom or scan that QR code. You will see that Oracle Apex is used by many, many customers out there on the planet. I won't go through these now, but you could actually hit that URL and hear that. And because Oracle Apex, with its low-code, data-driven approach, is so easy to use, it has been one of the go-to technologies to actually help make data useful, to actually help us dealing with what we've got happening around the planet. So if you go to apex.world, hit COVID apps, you will actually see many examples of there. So just wrapping up, Oracle Apex, it's been out there for more than 15 years. We've got hundreds of thousands of users building millions of apps out there. It's a very strong global growing community, and it's an ideal technology just to stand up an idea and actually test to see how useful it is. And I'm just going to wrap it up there and thank you for your time. And if there's any questions.
Yep. Thank you, Franco. Do we have any questions? Feel free to type it in the Q&A tab. Yeah, I guess we're all good. No one asked a question. And yes, thank you for coming. And also thank you, Franco, for sharing your knowledge to everyone. And we still have 3 more days until the session end. And you can still sign up for all the other sessions. And yep, have a good day and enjoy the conference.
Thank you. Thank you for your help, Nelsie.
No worries. Thank you.